Hi guys, AzureAce here and I am back with another Danganronpa 3 Future Side episode discussion, where today I will be covering episode 11, All Good Things, which will likely be followed up next week by Come to an End, but that's just my guess. Anyway, this episode was great in my opinion. It seems to be a very kind of Marmite-y episode. You either love it or you either hate it. I don't know why people hate it. It's an absolutely brilliant episode. Nowhere near as good as like episode 6 of Mirai Hen or Future Arc, whatever you guys call it. But it's still a very good episode. A lot of things got confirmed in this episode. Even a couple of my theories got confirmed in this episode, which I am ecstatic about. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. So the episode begins showing the door to Hope's Peak Academy as we get a flashback to the moment Naegi, Hirigiri, Asahina, Byakuya, Hagakure and Toko first stepped out of the doors of Hope's Peak Academy. We then switch to the Future Foundation, who had been watching the killing game unfold as Munakata asks if the rescue squad is out yet and saying about how it was Junko all along that planned this. Then Chisa apologises for not investigating Junko more. She then runs to Munakata and hugs him, and then we see that twisted evil smile of hers come on her face, proving that even at this point, even at the end of Danganronpa 1, she was still an ultimate despair. Then Tengen says something very interesting, and he seems very shady about it when he says it. He says, "The door is open, it seems," as if he was hoping the door would not open, which I'm actually going to bring back later. There's no opening in this episode as we switch back to the present with Munakata asking if Asahina knows who the attacker is, and Naegi asks him to listen to her, and Munakata agrees surprisingly. He's definitely a good character now, and I'm so happy that he is at least thinking of cooperating with Naegi now. Asahina then shows Naegi the book and he reads it out as it says, "No signs of any footprints or fingerprints at the scene of the killings. The knife wounds were all within the reach of the victims. This means a logical conclusion is that they're all suicides." I was right, guys. I'm sure I mentioned a couple of my videos. I think I've mentioned it in one or two, but on Twitter I've been saying constantly there's no attacker, or rather I said there's no traitor, but the same rule still applies. I said there's no attacker. It's going to turn out that there's going to be no one doing the killings. It's going to, I don't know. I was kind of following Kukalin. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He's another Danganronpa YouTuber, or rather an anime reviewer. And he said that possibly there may be in an animation, these characters aren't really dying. They're all just kind of, their avatars are dying within the game, or rather the animation or whatever. But I thought it might have been that. But turns out there is no attacker at all. In the actual, we're going to get a bit more of an explanation as to what happens with these quote-unquote suicides later on in the video. Naegi flips through the pages and finds layouts of the rooms the victims were all in, as well as the place of the monitors in that room and the victim's position. And then we see another confirmation on one of my own theories, as it looks like Ryota flinches when Naegi mentions the monitors, pretty much confirming that he's involved to some extent with the killing game, as we see more evidence of that later. Naegi does say that every time he's seen a victim, they have always been suspiciously near a monitor, and wonders if they have something to do with the suicides, as he gets up and asks Munakata for a favour. We then switch to see Naegi tied up with wires or rope or whatever, as they predict Naegi to be the next one to wake up as the attacker. Asahina is a little shaky on this idea, but Naegi says basically to not worry and that he will survive for the sake of not letting Kirigiri down. Ryota, Munakata and Asahina all head to a room that has no monitors in it as the time limit jingle goes off, sending all of the remaining members to sleep. We hear a soft beeping sound like an alarm ring throughout the halls, and then we see Naegi wake up and he is in fact the attacker. Monokuma then appears on the monitor and starts going on about the attacker and such, as Naegi comes to the conclusion that not only do the wristbands administer sleeping drugs and poison, but they also keep track of how close they are to a monitor, which then determines who the attacker is going to be. Naegi wonders if the Monokuma is actually a pre-recorded animation or cutscene, as it doesn't answer back to him like Monokuma usually would. Monokuma then says, "Want to know what the secret bonus is?" then watch real close as we see a countdown from 3, 2, 1 as we get this. Seriously, like, I've got no words for it. It's just so twisted and just seriously screwed up reverse version of Monokuma's theme, while the Monokuma transition comes on the screen and then it starts going all negative with colours, and it's really creepy, and switches to Monokuma's red eye, which is inverting between the red and negative colours as well, as the screen then cuts to black and the music stops. We come back in this really weird trippy place, which seems to be Naegi's mind. We then hear from behind him Kirigiri talk to him as Kirigiri appears behind him, asking why he's still alive. He turns to see her, and behind him again, Sayaka Maizono appears from Danganronpa 1 behind him. Weird. Kirigiri says that this is his fault and that this is the real kicker, the real creepy part. Out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere, all of his former classmates start appearing out of thin air. Hifumi, Celestia and Ishimaru all appear beside Kirigiri. Sakura, Mondo, Leon and Chihiro all appear beside Maizono. Naegi asks what's going on, and Kirigiri and Maizono reply asking why he's still alive again, when he starts tearing up and we see this awful sight of all the characters. Kirigiri is poisoned like she was in episode 9, Maizono is stabbed through the stomach, and that's not even the worst of it. Blood starts flowing towards Naegi as we see Leon with his face just bruised and battered by the baseballs like in his execution. Ishimaru has the blood pouring out of his head when he was murdered with the hammer. Celestia is burning at the stake like in her execution. Sakura is in the same position she was found to have committed suicide. Chihiro is hanging like he was murdered in. Mondo's jacket's floating in a pile of butter. This is just... I was freaking out. This was so creepy the first time I watched it. The blood starts covering Naegi as in the real world he literally starts going insane, kicking and screaming and crying, trying to get out of these wires as the monitor drops that iconic Monokuma knife we've seen throughout the entirety of this series. Naegi picks up the knife and holds it to his chest as we see him open his eyes, and they're the same as how Chisa in the 77th class's eyes were in the Despair arc, with the spirals and the red tint to them. He has fallen into despair. This video was enough to turn the ultimate hope into ultimate despair. Now who do you think would do that? I'll leave that question lingering for you guys for the end of the video. He goes to stab himself, but then the knife flies across the room as someone picks him up and pins him to the wall by his neck with their elbow. And who is it? It's none other than the man, the myth, the legend himself, Juzo Sakakura. Again, I was right. He survived Munakata's stab wound. It's never explicitly stated how he survived it, but I still go with the headcanon that the wound was cauterized. Like I said, he says that after defeating Junko, Naegi can't kill himself like that, as Naegi snaps back to reality and the spirals disappear from his eyes, and Sakakura just looks beaten, he looks done. He then drops to the ground as Naegi asks how he's awake, and this man right here, Juzo Sakakura, cut off his damn hand that had the bangle on it. The reason why Sakakura did that is because he thought he could get a glimpse of the mastermind of this game by not being asleep. Naegi then tells Sakakura that there is no attacker and that everyone committed suicide. We then get these scenes of everyone committing suicide. We see Gozu stabbing himself in the eye multiple times before hanging himself. We see Chisa trying to get onto the chandelier, but personally I'd argue she'd do that out of her own will, seeing as how she's a remnant of despair. We see Kimura banging her head against the wall, and we see Ruruka just sitting there turning into despair. Sakakura starts going a little insane as he starts laughing and says that they never really needed to kill each other. He stabs the ground, breaking the knife, and then gets up. Naegi asks him to end the game together with him, but Sakakura is having none of it. He said that the reason he hates Naegi is that he defeated Junko, unlike Sakakura. He was jealous that Naegi was strong enough to stand up to Junko. He couldn't stop the attacker and that Munakata abandoned him, which is just really sad. I really feel bad for Sakakura now. He's gone through so much. In episode 1 of Future Arc, I absolutely hated him. I hated his guts. I hated his disgust for Naegi. It was so unjustified. But now I just see this broken man who never really deserved any of this. He was just trying to do his job. He was just trying to be loyal to Munakata, but none of it worked for him. It's just horrible to see that. Naegi tells him Munakata thought he was in despair, and he doesn't really acknowledge it as he starts walking away. We switch to see Asahina breaking a monitor with the knife popping out. Naegi looks at Ryota as he is very suspicious of him. Then Munakata says something that will lead to the finale of this series. He says that there is only one other person in the Future Foundation who is authorized to install equipment like this throughout the building, and he's the one who said he knew who all the attackers were, the founder of the Future Foundation and former principal of Hope's Peak Academy, Kazuo Tengen. He says that since anyone who's near a monitor becomes the killer, then Tengen said that anyone could be the attacker. He wasn't exactly wrong when he said that to Munakata. Asahina asks why Tengen would want a killing game, and Munakata simply replies that it's because he isn't a Zetsubo no Zanto, a remnant of despair. If you remember, back when Tengen was just about dead and before Munakata killed him, he said that he wasn't a remnant of despair. Now you'd think that would trigger his NG code, but he didn't, or rather Munakata didn't actually ask that as a question, so really he could have tricked us all with that, and it looks like he has, somehow. Maybe he's still alive, I don't know, but he also says he knew Junko was behind everything during the Despair arc, but Sakakura and Chisa attested to her innocence and he believed them. We then switch to see Sakakura in the Monokuma door room. As he hobbles along, he slips and falls against the wall, leaving a massive blood stain on it. He then opens a door, revealing a bunch of levers and switches. As he reaches up and pulls one down, turning off the power to all of the monitors in the building and turning the emergency lights on. Munakata realizes that it must be Sakakura who's doing this, as we see Sakakura still keeping on, pulling down the levers. Naegi tells Munakata to go see Sakakura and that he's not a despair. The lights prove that Sakakura still believes in Munakata and that he wants to get him out of the game. Then the ending song starts playing and it's just so amazing. As Munakata turns and starts walking away, then he starts running as we switch to Sakakura with one switch left, and he says, "Even if I was abandoned, I still want him to live," as he pulls it down and all of the bracelets break off of Naegi, Asahina, Ryota and Munakata, and Munakata's still running faster and faster as we switch to Juzo, who finally, regrettably, truly becomes our 12th victim of this killing game as he finally passes away. He got his redemption and I am so glad that he did. This actually brought tears to my eyes. Munakata runs into the power room to find that the blood is everywhere and Sakakura's dead body is sitting there. His hand is still on the lever as we get the shot of Chisa, Munakata and Sakakura all graduating from Hope's Peak Academy one final time. Munakata says, "I'm sorry, I never managed to make it in time," as he starts crying looking at Sakakura's dead body. We switch to get a very quick scene outside the building of all of the default foundation members getting people out of rubble and clearing it away and stuff. There's still absolutely no sign of Byakuya anywhere though, which is still weird. We switch back to Naegi, Ryota and Asahina as Naegi finally calls Ryota out on what he possibly did. He says that that video he saw was one that could turn someone to despair and kill themselves, that an average person couldn't make that video. He asks Ryota, the super high school level animator, if he knows how to do that. Ryota says that it wasn't him, it was Junko Enoshima who did it. She took his animation talent. Now at this point he's probably having very bad flashbacks to the time when he was forced to make the animation that turned Chisa and his 77th classmates to despair, as well as the one that led to Chiaki Nanami's death. Asahina then asks how she did it as Ryota's phone finally comes into play as it starts ringing and they all look at it. Who's the message from? It's from Kazuo Tengen as the episode ends there. another cliffhanger leading into the final episode that will be coming out next week. But now it's time for my overall thoughts of this episode. Like I said, you either love it or hate it. I loved it. I still don't get why people hate it. There's nothing really to hate here other than, I guess, the cliffhanger ending. But the stuff with Sakakura being alive and being the only one to truly end the game was just mesmerising. The power of hope and his belief in Munakata pulled him through it to get him out, which was absolutely amazing to see. I've wanted so long for Sakakura to get his redemption arc. He has most definitely deserved it, arguably the most deserved in the entire of Danganronpa 3 so far. It's just so sad to see him go now that he's had that redemption and we all like him now. Also, to all my theories, I knew there was no attacker, but I did not expect them all to have committed suicide, like, not at all. That was a very big shock to me. What's more shocking to me is that Chisa, a remnant of despair, had no hand in this killing game at all, unless it's possible that she volunteered to Tengen, or whoever the real mastermind of this game is, that she wanted to be the first one to die, which would send her two best friends into a frenzy and cause more despair. That's how I like to think about it. And also just Tengen. I can't believe he slipped my mind. I definitely thought he was shady ever since the start, but throughout the episodes, that shade sort of just vanished, I guess. I thought he was truly a good person trying to do the right things, but it seems that he's not. But that's the thing. How could he have messaged Ryota? He's dead. He was impaled by a pole and had his throat slit open. He is definitely dead, which means that someone has used his phone to message Ryota. You know, is it Junko again? Is it Izuru, Nagito, Byakuya? Who the hell knows at this point? It's very crazy to think about this and the possibilities of who it could be. But that's all for today's video, guys, as we now only have this time 5 survivors remaining as we are coming up to the finale of this amazing series, this amazing Hope's Peak Academy arc. The next episode we're getting is Zetsubo Hen episode 11, which will end the Despair arc, and then next Monday we will be getting Mirai Hen or Future arc episode 12, which will end off the Future arc, as well as a special sometime. I don't know what date the special is, and we don't know what it's going to entail either. But nevertheless, if you guys like this video, please leave a like and a comment in the comment section below. Share this amongst your friends. I've been AzureAce, and thank you for coming to the video.
It is I, Vegeta, the Prince of All Saiyans, and you're watching AzureAce. Subscribe for more content like this one.